Hello everybody, this is George with Melnick's Automotive. Here I'm working on a 2011 Chrysler Town & Country, and I'll be doing the brake job on this van. And I just kind of want to show you a couple tips before you replace your rotors and pads, how to check them and how to actually to do them. So first you want to put emergency brake if you don't have a lift, and I do have a lift but I'm using a jack just because my lift is busy. So you want to find a good point where you can jack up the vehicle. You don't want to go ahead and jack it up on the bottom of the radiator and crush right through and damage the radiator. So you want to find a good point. Chrysler has engine mount right underneath here, so I put my jack right in the bottom of that engine mount, and it's very good sturdy place to put the jack. Or you can go ahead and put your jack right underneath here. There's also a point where you could, right underneath there, this is the point usually where you could put your jack, and then you can put your jack stands, right underneath here, on both sides. But I just wanted to get both wheels off the ground, just to show you that they're off the ground, so I can work on both sides at the same time. So I have an impact, and I already went ahead and got all my lug nuts off. I put them there. So I'm gonna pull the wheel off. Okay, you want to go ahead and inspect your rotor. Basically, a lot of times they tell you you need a rotor. You can, once you pull the wheel off, you can look at the rotor, what type of shape it is. This one is very smooth, and you also want to go ahead and feel both sides, make sure you don't have any deep gouges in the rotor and stuff like that. So the best way to tell if you need rotors turned or replaced is when you're doing about 50-60 miles an hour in a highway and you gently tap the brake. If you feel a pulsation, that's a very clear sign that you need your rotors turned or replaced. So this one, obviously I asked the customer, he said it doesn't pulsate. He's just pretty low on the pads, and we're just gonna get right into that. Obviously I could see that he's pretty low on the pad, and I'm gonna pull the caliper. I'm gonna show you how to do that. So he doesn't need the rotors in this case, and that's the tip, how to check the rotors. So next, you can pull entire caliper off, but what I'm gonna do, I'm not gonna pull entire caliper off. I'm gonna kind of cheat the system. I'm gonna only remove the one bolt. I'm gonna remove the caliper slide bolt right there. This bolt, the caliper should slide on here. When you push it back and forth, it should slide on there. And you also want to check these pins, make sure they're not seized, because a lot of times when grease gets hot and it seizes, and the caliper supposed to be slightly moving back and forth. Otherwise, if it gets seized and it stays in the same spot, it wears out the inner pad, and it's like you just installed the pads and 2 months later you're replacing the pads again. So you always make sure, when you do this, you want to make sure the pins are nicely greased and cleaned and then re-greased when you put them back in there. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna remove this bolt here, and you can remove the bolt. There's another bolt right there in the bottom, and we can pull the caliper off. But before you do that, you want to open the hood and open the cap, because when we're going to be pushing the cylinder, and I'm going to explain that in a minute, cylinder, we're going to push it back in. There's going to be all the fluid that's in the brake hose. It's going to go back up to the reservoir. And let me pop the hood to show you that step. Okay, so this is the press that I was telling you about, that you could rent from AutoZone or Advanced Auto Parts. Maybe O'Reilly's have it, and CarQuest should have it, Napa should have it. But most of you probably will not have this. But if you have a nice set of pliers like this, it makes the job a lot quicker. But by the time you take the tool, you take the plate, and you pick the right size plate, that's easier. But what I actually end up using is just a nice set of pliers. What I'll do, I'm gonna try to videotape myself and show you how am I gonna do it. You don't wanna really damage the rubber seal, but I just put it like that, and I start squeezing, and as you could see, it's going right back in its place, and very slowly trying to videotape and do it with one hand. If you use your both hands, it makes it so much easier. You could get it done in a couple seconds. So I have it all in there right now. As soon as my new pads come in, I'll be able to start prepping those to put them in. Next, I like to use this anti-seize lubricant, and you can also pick this stuff up any auto parts store. I think this is one of the best I've used. This stuff, when it, hardly ever seizes up. It looks gray, kind of like this. So what I do the edges of my new pads. I kind of, put some of this anti-seize lubricant on my hardware, and I pull out my pins. As a matter of fact, we're gonna pull it out right now and look at it. But this pin, as you can see, is in really nice shape. Very nice shape. It's got some grease on it and moves fairly easy, and you can mix the stuff with grease. It's not gonna hurt anything. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna go ahead and put a little bit of that anti-seize lubricant on the pin. You don't want to put too much. You just want to put just a bit, because when you have too much in there, it's also no good. It's gonna try to come out on the side of the seal. It'll be just a mess. So let me put a little bit on there, and I'll show you. Just kind of like this. So, and we're gonna put it right back. Kind of turn it when you put it back in so it works itself, and you push it in. Make sure the rubber seal is right against the caliper. It's on there nice and tight. Kind of massage it back and forth. So this pin is done. So once I grease my hardware and my pads, I put them in, I will lower the caliper, and then I'll do the top pin. This way your caliper is not hanging, because it's not a good idea just to let it hang. Otherwise you have to use a bungee cord. I just like to do it this way. This way it just stays in its own place, and there's no stress on a brake hose or anything like that. I like to use a little wire brush like this. It could be a different style, to clean the hardware, all the brake dust off the hardware that's on there now, before I put my lubricant on there. Because that's, a lot of people complain it squeaks and stuff like that. The reason it squeaks is when you don't have nothing there, when the metal rubs against the metal, it making the squeaking sound. But when you just put a little bit of this stuff on there, it will prevent it from squeaking. So just kind of work it, and you can see it comes out. It's nice and shiny. So you want to, if you pull the rotor, you could do a better job, but this will be just fine. It will be just acceptable. So we can put a little dib of anti-seize lubricant on there. We're gonna do 4 corners. We're gonna do it here, we're gonna do it right on top, and also on inside, both sides. And we'll be ready to put our pad in there. Okay, so I went ahead and cleaned all the hardware the best I could. Like I said, you could do a lot better job if you remove the rotor, but in this case we're not going to. And now I'm going to put just a little bit of anti-seize lubricant. You don't want to really get anything on the rotor. Try to stay away from the rotor, because if you get that rotor, you want to wipe it off with a brake cleaner. But just like that, that's plenty. You don't want to put too much, just so it's there. It will prevent squeaking, and also the pad will be sliding on it back and forth, which will make the pad wear out evenly. Like this pad, you could see, I mean, this is perfect. I mean, this one still has about 25% left, but you could see how even they are. This is one pad, the outside pad, and this is the inside pad. And it wasn't squeaking because it still had a little bit of life left on it. But that's what you want. You want both sides to wear out evenly. If you have one side wearing out, the inside wearing out more than the outside, then you have a problem in this pin. Or your caliper, your piston does not retract. And then you have to replace the caliper. And we'll do a video how we replace a caliper some other time and how we bleed brakes. This is just kind of to show you how you can get it done by yourself in your own garage. You don't need any special tools, and that's the reason I'm just using hand tools here. I'm not using any of my impacts. Trying to show you basic things that you could do in your own garage, and that's the reason why I'm not using this press. This press makes it very easily to push the piston back in its housing into the caliper very easily. But I just used big pliers to make it as more simple as possible, because anybody have access to pliers. Maybe not everybody might have an access to the piston press, which makes it 10 times easier. Okay, so I got my gold pads. These come with lifetime warranty from AutoZone, and the pads come with all the hardware, but like I said, I usually save these. I don't throw them out because I might use it in another car. I do replace these if the ones that I have on the caliper bracket, if they're in bad shape, I replace them. But if they're not in bad shape, I don't, because these usually a lot cheaper quality than the OEM ones that are on there, and these are very solid. I usually always check them if they're rusted out, and I do replace them. But in this case, I'm not gonna replace them because these also, they're a lot cheaper quality, and they also a lot of times they squeak, and sometimes the fitment is not as good as it should be. And now I'm gonna pull out my pads so you could see they're nice and thick. So we're gonna get the inside and outside pad. They are a little different. The inside pad has this little clip here. What happens when the rotor wears the pad out and it reaches this little metal bracket, it starts squeaking, and you don't want to drive all the way till they start squeaking, because these come with lifetime warranty. You could replace them for free, and no point of screwing up the surface of the rotor with that metal bracket or worn out pad. So just once again, just so you know, the one that has a clip on it, that's the inside pad, and it should go right in just like that. And this is an outside pad. It does not have the clip. It should also go right in just like that. And they should move. They should have a movement, because if they don't have movement, what's gonna happen, you can see how easily they move. If they don't have movement, sometimes I take a file and I gently file off the coating, because they put this powder coating on the metal part of the pad so they don't rust out. So what I usually do, I usually take my file and kind of clean them up on the edges, because sometimes they don't want to fit pretty well. So I went ahead and put both of my pads in. Next, I'm ready to close my caliper. And what I actually did already, usually I close the caliper, I put my bolt back in, and I take the top bolt off for the pin. So what I actually did, I went ahead and once I went ahead already greased my pin by taking it out with the caliper together, and I already put some anti-seize agent on it. So this way you don't have to use a bungee cord. Basically just stays on there without any problems. So basically you put it on there, it's nice, it fitted real nice. We're gonna now put the bolt back on it, and it's just so you know, one side is clockwise, one side is counterclockwise. So there's a bolt here that you need to hold it either with some nice channel locks, or it's a size 17 open end wrench. You can hold that while you tighten the bolt. So so this side is done. I'm gonna go ahead and do the other side. I'm not gonna videotape that, but then when you're done, you have your wheels back on there. You do want to go ahead and pump the brake pedal a couple times, because we have, as you can see, our piston is back in the caliper, and if you don't pump the brakes and you start the car, put it in reverse, and you'll be pumping your brakes before the car stops. So you want to pump the brakes just before you start driving the car. So when you start the car, first pump the brake pedal 4 or 5 times so that piston can come out to its normal position, because right now it's, you know, it's all the way back. So that's it for this video. This was George with Melnick's Automotive. Please subscribe to our channel. I'll be posting pretty cool videos daily.